but then the topic got diverted. But then it seems to have, you seem to have.
Yeah, you hold it closer. It's fine. You just have to hold it closer.
So you said that you didn't get a reference to go on an internship during summer.
Yeah.
But then you seem to have gone anyway.
No. Okay, so be careful. So I was trying to go to AT&T Research and IBM Research. I actually got an offer from a guy in IBM Research in Yorktown Heights. He came and gave a talk, and I asked some silly questions. I didn't think I asked any profound questions. The guy was completely impressed, you know. Right after the talk, he comes to me. This is Moshe Zloof. For those of you who know about query by example, he was the father of this thing. This was a very, easy to use interface instead of SQL to access a relational system. So I said, oh, okay. So at that time in America, if you wanted to get a summer job, the immigration service said, you have to show that your original source of funds is not available or insufficient for the summer, and only then they gave you the work permit for the summer. It's all different now. So this is all point-in-time statement. So what I had done was, totally out of the blue, I had written to some European institutions without even knowing that they took summer students and such. Just because there were some projects that I was excited about that were going on in those places. And one of them, meaning the guys at Paris, INRIA in Paris, they came back and said, hey, we would love to have you. How much money you want? I'm like, I never thought I'll be asked how much money I want. This other place in Germany, University of Stuttgart, the guy said, this summer we can't do, but next summer we can do because it was too late and so on. So I was able to go to Europe 2 summers in a row. That didn't require any permission from the US immigration jokers, right? So, but still I didn't get a thesis topic. I got interesting contacts, I got to see a lot of places and so on. But from a pure thesis topic viewpoint, that didn't result in anything. Yeah.
I'll be doing a PhD in computer science, as in like you're from chemical engineering.
Yeah, come on. After all this Ramayanam, you're asking me this question. I thought I already went through this in gory detail.
Okay, let me just like rephrase myself. As in like, what I mean to say is that from your presentation, it's like you've done database management, etc., etc. And so, why didn't you think you would go into something like machine learning, or you wouldn't go into, let's say, circuits, or as in you could have probably gone into something related to chemical engineering and computer science also. And
okay, then you haven't quite got. See, first of all, I got into the computer usage business in the second year. So maybe some of this history is useful to expand on. It was a 5-year BTech program at that time. First 2 years were common across disciplines, right? So beginning of second year is when the computer came, and I immediately started using it. So even before I got into chemical engineering proper, starting in the 3rd year, I had gotten hooked to this computer business. Initially, it was more as the user of the system, right? Not as the guy in the bowels of the system, meaning using these simulation and linear programming and all these packages, right? So that was more management science kind of stuff. So that's why initially I thought, oh, this is exciting stuff, I'll do a PhD in management science. But it's at the end of the 3rd year, when I entered into this domain where I was trying to use this fancy feature and the system was crashing, and I spent all my summer sitting in Vellore digging through this stacks of code dump pages and reverse engineering the logic and identifying the problem, that I was forced to learn a lot more about operating systems, internals and all this. Hardware instructions and such, registers and all this kind of stuff. That forced me to learn a lot about the internals of the operating system and not so much database system at that time, but that was a separate thing that I had gotten hooked on. That's when I said, oh, this is all this, for the weak-minded people, this management science kind of stuff, because that's high-level fluffy stuff. Bare metal, close to the machine kind of stuff is what the macho thing is. So that's when I said I'm going to do a PhD in computer science. Okay, so that you shouldn't be so surprised about. I mean, it's one thing to say, working only in the database area for 30 years is a lot more problematic than sticking to computer science as an area. That's a vast area, okay? Machine learning and all that is still part of computer science, okay? So that's where I was saying there is some amount of balance that you need to strike between staying in one very narrow topic for way too long versus staying on it for a certain amount of period, then switching to another topic, staying there for a while, blah, blah, blah. We talk in IBM about the T-shaped individual. You should have some amount of depth in many areas, and then in one area, it's the vertical part of the T. You have to have a lot of depth. Over time, that vertical part might switch areas, okay? And that's a good thing to do. But this is not to say there aren't people. There are some people who, when you look at what they are doing now in IBM, you won't even imagine that this guy who is messing around with Java, this, that, is actually a physicist, okay? There is a woman in my lab, she is a chemist, I believe. And then she started doing all this database, life sciences and such things. So IBM at least has enough breadth of things going on. It's really up to you. So if somebody leaves IBM saying, oh, I didn't find enough interesting work to do, either they haven't done their homework, or there may be other reasons like they don't want to move out of a certain area, meaning geography, because of other reasons, family members, whatever. And so even though IBM as a company has other locations where, you know, totally different stuff is going on that might be of interest to the person, he or she doesn't go there. So you could have asked another question, which is sitting in Silicon Valley for 31 years, how come you're still with the same company? So some people think I'm a loser because nobody wanted me, that's why I'm still in IBM for 31 years. People think I'm nuts to not be part of all this excitement of Silicon Valley, you know, venture funds and startups and all this kind of stuff. Apple headquarters is literally a few miles from my home. I'm in the next town called Saratoga. Apple is in Cupertino. Any number of other companies, little ones to big ones, are there. And I had enough fun as a technical person in IBM that I didn't feel I had to become a manager to have more fun or a different kind of fun. I got to work with people across the globe, as I didn't dwell on those topics, but England and various places, Germany, Austria and such, India also. That I got to travel a lot, I had fun. I didn't feel that, and because I wasn't looking for overnight millions, I was having enough of an impact. I didn't want to necessarily get an impact like, oh, I produce the game that's played by the millions of people kind of game, thrill. So that's my reason for not, I mean, it's not to say that my wife hasn't complained or whatever. You know, look at this XYZ who's not as smart as you, but you know, that guy made $100 million overnight and oh, you are nuts, blah, blah, blah. You'll hear all that, and that requires a certain amount of mental strength also to deal with. By the same token, you know, some of these guys who used to think I was nuts staying in the same company for, by then I guess it's 17, 18 years, at the height of the dot-com, 98, right? Later on, they thought I was still somewhat crazy, but they were not laughing as much because I still had my job. They had lost their jobs at the time of the dot-com bust, right? Yeah. It's not on.
Hello.
Ah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that sometimes you need to, you know, rethink what you're working on and try to have a different approach.
Right.
And it might not always work out.
Yeah.
So in your case, it sometimes worked out.
Yeah, in fact, I in the presentation talk about certain areas where I got name and fame in terms of papers,
Yeah.
but I was not happy with the real life impact of that work.
Yeah. So no. So the other idea about, you know, rethinking the basics.
Mm.
So when did you, as in experience cases where it didn't work out, or as in when did you realize, you know, I should stop doing this and this is not working out?
So in one case, for instance, some other group of people came to me and said, hey, we would like you to, like the Lotus Notes people came to me and said, we desperately need to improve the scalability of our system. We need to improve concurrency. And we know that you can get this done. We can't even, we don't have the people in-house in Lotus. They were based in Boston area. And we know that we can't hire such people. Meaning, even if they have the money, people won't want to go there and work in that organization because it's not known for this kind of stuff. So they thought that I would be ideal person to assemble a group of people, and I have the background, and that I could get the job done, and it'll be innovative and so on. It's not like just boring job. And so when that was put on the plate, and I was struggling to get even $100,000 from the product people in Germany and Vienna in Austria for the workflow management work I was doing, and I was noticing that they had more fundamental problems that they had to deal with because they used Object Store as their repository, and it had all sorts of problems. There was no way that they were going to take up our much fancier functionality and stick it into the product in any reasonable amount of time. So presented with this other opportunity, I said, okay, time to shut shop here and move on to this other thing. So there were things like that that happened. So, you know, even in IBM Research with all the fancy title I have and so on, there isn't any money for the asking, you know, that I can just put my hand in and get the money. I still have to, on an annual basis, find people to work with and so on, and especially because I'm not a manager, I still need to find somebody else to manage these people who work with me and things like that. So funding is something that's an interesting discussion we can have. Only part of our funding comes from corporate, the IBM Research budget. The rest we have to fend for ourselves, meaning make deals with the other parts of IBM. And that's when some of the work that we do in that context tends to be more applied than really exploratory kind of work. And that also means that we are more in touch with reality on that side. And so this is how we mix and match our exploratory projects versus applied projects, things with short-term focus versus long-term focus and so on. So you have to constantly sell. That's the point I made before. Even after you get all this fancy title and all that, you can't take anything for granted that just because Mohan mumbles something, people are going to say, oh yes sir, we'll do what you say or whatever. So I still have to, at the end of the year, justify my existence. I have to write up what I accomplished, and I get rated on it. I get compared with other fellows. So there's all these checks and balances that we have in our organization, which also causes things to change over time. The funding available for one area maybe. In that sense, we are not too different from academicians who have to go seek funding from DST and such organizations, Department of Science and Technology in the US, NSF and such funding agencies, right? And their focus will change over time. Some new topics like mobility and big data and so on become popular now, right? There'll be more focus on that than some traditional SQL databases and so on.
Last question.
Okay. He's the boss.
What is the scope for industrial research now that research is moving to academic institutions?
Who said that?
I mean, we find it everywhere, don't we?
I mean, it has always been there in academic institutions. So I don't know whether you are making a statement about some quantum change in the way research gets done, where in fact, to the contrary, research, instead of being done only in big research labs, even in industry, you now find, you know, droves of Stanford PhDs and such getting into the likes of Google and this and that, which are not necessarily establishments with any fancy research labs per se. In fact, for a long time, these guys didn't even call any part of their organization as the research unit of Google or Yahoo or whatever. But after a while, of course, Yahoo Research was headed by one of our alumnus, Prabhakar Raghavan, who has jumped ship now and gone to, where did he go? Google. And he has jumped all over the place. But the fact that a lot more PhDs are being employed by Facebook, Google, Yahoo and such, which are not traditional software companies or hardware companies for that matter, means that a lot more fundamentally new things get done. Even Facebook with its new data center that they built in Oregon, opencompute.org is the place where you will go and find out. They've done some fancy hardware related things, so how the servers are designed, how the buildings are constructed in order to reduce the cost of cooling the systems and such. So there's quite a bit of that going on, and so I don't know where you got this specific...
physics and electronics?
Even there, I mean, IBM Research in Bangalore, we are doing nanotech work. Okay, there is one Dr. Murali Kota that I talked about a while ago with Bhaskar. He is doing stuff that's setting on fire some of the sorts of things that were happening in the past only in the IBM US kind of organizations. And so even in India, even in the product side of India, he's not even part of IBM research in India. He is doing outstanding work that CNR Rao and all these people are recognizing and inviting him all the time to give various presentations and such. So it's all again a question of initiative. Even in a big company like IBM with 400,000 employees, if you put your mind to doing something, you can actually accomplish it. It's all the passion that you show. You can always find excuses not to do things also. You can blame the system, this, that, and sit on your behind and, okay, sara, that kind of thing. But if you are really passionate about it, you can, get across some of the hurdles and such. This is not to say that everybody can succeed just because they are passionate. There has to be lots of other things also that have to line up. But you have to do your bit to, go past the more immediate excuses that one might immediately think of as to why something won't work. There will be always naysayers that you have to be able to confront and get past and such. Oh wow, jeez. Okay, are we coming up? Photograph time, huh? Thank you. Wow, what is it? Nice, thank you. Thank you.